Theatre Workshop Coulsdon Atmospherics present A Scandal in Bohemia, from the adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle, first published in 1891, adapted by Paul M. Ford and Daniel Ireson.
Women. There, truly, lay the difference between he and I. For myself, I have always had a fondness, some would say a weakness, for that fairer sex. Not so Sherlock Holmes. He would have you believe that all emotions, but especially that of love, were abhorrent to his precise and calculating mind. For the trained reasoner to admit such intrusions into his own delicate and finely adjusted faculties would have been no less terrible than a speck of grit in a sensitive instrument, or a crack in one of his lenses. Yet there was one woman. In his eyes, she eclipses and predominates the whole of her sex. Do not misunderstand me. It was not that he felt any emotion akin to love, but still. Let me explain. It was March of 1888, and I had not seen Holmes for some time. My recent marriage had wholly absorbed my attention, as these matters should, and I had also returned to practicing medicine. That he was still attracted to the study of crime was apparent from the tales that reached me of his involvement in such cases as the Trepoff murder in Odessa and the tragedy of the Atkinson brothers, and, I will confess, to feeling the pangs of nostalgia whenever the daily press told me of his adventures. Perhaps it was this that led my steps when one night, in returning from a home visit to a patient, my way took me down Baker Street. Looking up at the windows of the rooms we once shared, and seeing his silhouette against the lowered blind, pacing the floor in that manner I knew of old, I was seized with a keen desire to see Holmes again. I rang the bell, and after a brief but welcoming exchange with Mrs. Hudson, was shown up to his study. I had barely crossed the threshold when, without a pause in his movements, he thrust a note at me.
Watson, what do you make of this?
Oh, a pleasure to see you too, Holmes.
My apologies. How are you, my dear doctor?
Well, I am well, thank you, Holmes.
Indeed. Married life clearly suits you. You've put on some £7 since last we met.
£7?
Perhaps a trifle more, but only a trifle. Back in harness again, I see, judging by the traces of silver nitrate on your forefinger, and the bulge in your top hat, which is no doubt where you have secreted your stethoscope.
Yes.
So, now that we've done with the formalities, what do you make of the note, Watson? Read it aloud, if you will.
At 7:45 this evening, a gentleman will call who desires to consult you upon a matter of the gravest importance. Be in your chamber at that hour, and do not take it amiss if your visitor wears a mask. A mask, Holmes?
Not the usual apparel for a gentleman, even in London. But the note, Watson. The note.
What of it?
What else does it tell you?
I've told you what it said, and surely you've read it.
My dear Watson, it tells us much more than that which is written. But you must observe, rather than simply look. This is key to the art of deduction. For example, how many stairs are there from the hall to this room?
I'm afraid I have no idea.
And yet you have climbed those stairs over the years. How many times?
Well, I don't know. There are hundreds.
Quite so. You have looked, but you have not observed. And this is just my point. For the record, Watson, there are 17 steps. Now, apply this lesson to the note.
Well, given that the note refers to a most secret matter, the writer is almost certainly the gentleman who will call on you, and he is presumably well-to-do. The paper is of a peculiarly heavy stock, and surely no less than £0.50 a packet.
Excellent. What more?
Well, let me just hold it up to the light. Ah, yes, there's a watermark, presumably of the maker, capital E, small g, capital P, then a space, followed by a capital G and a small t.
This country or overseas?
German. Yes, definitely German. The abbreviation of GT means the same as CO for company in this country.
Well done, Watson. Close enough. It's actually from Bohemia. Well. Our mysterious client has arrived, if I were to guess by the carriage, and a well-to-do one at that. A nice little brougham with a pair of beauties pulling it. 150 guineas apiece, I don't doubt. There's money in this, Watson, if there's nothing else.
I think perhaps that I'd better take my leave, Holmes.
Not a bit of it, Doctor. Please, stay. I am quite lost without my Boswell.
But your client.
Never mind him. I may need your help. And indeed, so may he. This promises to be interesting. Please, take that armchair and give us your best attention.
As you wish, Holmes.
Come in.
The man who entered could hardly have been less than 6 feet 6 inches in height, with the chest and limbs of a Hercules. As forewarned by the note, his upper face was hidden behind a mask. But his bold apparel, astrakhan coat, fur-top boots and a deep blue cloak lined in flame-coloured silk belied any attempt at an inconspicuous appearance.
Which of you is Sherlock Holmes?
I am he. Pray, take a seat. This is my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson, who is occasionally good enough to help me in my cases. Whom have I the honour to address?
You may address me as the Count von Kram, a Bohemian nobleman. I have a delicate matter to discuss, and would rather it be done in total secrecy. Your friend...
You may say before this gentleman anything which you may say to me.
Very well. But I must have your word that nothing of this will be spoken about to anyone outside this room. It is not too much to say that the matter is of such weight, it may change the course of nations.
As serious as that? Well, sir, you have my word if you must.
And indeed mine.
To speak plainly, the matter implicates the great house of Ormstein, the hereditary kings of Bohemia.
I was aware of that. Now, if your majesty would just condescend to state the details of your case, I should be better able to advise you.
Your majesty, sir, you are mistaken.
I think not. Your majesty had not spoken before I was aware that I was addressing Wilhelm Gottsweig Sigismund von Ormstein, Grand Duke of Kassel-Felstein and hereditary king of Bohemia. The ring on your right hand, the telltale creasing of the earlobes, a familial trait, the faint dueling scar upon your jaw.
You are right. I am the king. Why should I attempt to conceal it?
Why, indeed. So please, remove the mask.
Please understand that I am not accustomed to doing such business in my own person. Yet the issue is so delicate that I cannot confide it to an agent without putting myself in their power. I have come incognito from Prague with the express purpose of consulting you.
Then pray consult.
Indeed. The facts are briefly these. Some 5 years ago, I made the acquaintance of the well-known adventuress Irene Adler. The name is possibly familiar to you?
Kindly look her up in my index, Doctor.
Let me see. Here it is, Holmes. Oh, she's an American. Irene Adler, spinster, born in New Jersey in 1858. Followed a career in opera as a contralto. Performed at La Scala, Milan. Prima donna at the Imperial Opera of Warsaw. Retired from the stage 1884. Moved to London, just a year ago.
So, Your Majesty, you became entangled with this lady, wrote her some compromising letters, and are now desirous of getting those letters back.
Precisely so. But how...
Was there a secret marriage?
Certainly not.
No legal papers or certificates?
None.
Then, please excuse me, I fail to see Your Majesty's problem. If she does produce these letters for blackmail or any other purpose, how can she possibly prove their authenticity?
It is in my writing.
Ha! Forgery.
On my own personal notepaper.
Stolen.
With my royal seal.
Duplicated.
And a photograph.
Bought.
We were both in the photograph.
Oh, dear. That's...
Most unfortunate. Your Majesty has indeed committed a serious indiscretion.
I was young and not in my right mind. She is a remarkable woman. I thought I was in love.
It must be recovered.
My agents have already tried and failed.
Then it must be bought.
She will not sell.
Stolen, then.
5 attempts have been made. Twice, burglars in my pay have ransacked her house. Once, we diverted her luggage when she travelled. Twice she has been waylaid, all with no success.
It is quite a pretty little problem. What does she propose to do with the photograph?
To ruin me, of course.
But how?
I am about to be married to the daughter of the King of Scandinavia. She is herself the very soul of delicacy. A shadow of a doubt as to my conduct would bring the matter to an end.
And Irene Adler?
She threatens to send the photograph to the princess the day the engagement is announced. And she will do it. If she says she will do something, then it will be done. She may have the face of the most beautiful of women, but she has the mind of the most resolute of men. And there are no lengths to which she would not go, rather than see me marry another woman.
When is the announcement to be made?
Monday, just 3 days away.
Then we have time enough and more. Which is most fortunate, as I have 1 or 2 other matters of importance to look into just at present. Where is your Majesty staying?
You will find me at the Langham, under the name of the Count von Kram.
Good. I shall send you a message to let you know how we progress.
Pray do so soon. I shall be unable to rest till you do.
Then, as to money?
You have carte blanche.
Absolutely.
I would not be overstating my case to say that I would give one of the provinces of my kingdom to the man who places that photograph safely in my hands.
Good heavens.
And for present expenses?
This bag contains £300 in gold and 700 in notes.
Here is your receipt. And Miss Adler's address?
Is Bryony Lodge, Serpentine Avenue, St. John's Wood.
One other question. What size is the photograph?
I think you call it cabinet size.
Just so. Then good night, Your Majesty, and I trust that we shall soon have some good news for you.
Good evening, gentlemen. The future of Europe is in your hands.
Well, he certainly doesn't lack for a touch of melodrama, now does he?
Certainly not.
I should say good night to you too, Watson. Your wife will no doubt be wondering why your patient has detained you quite so long. But would you be good enough to call me tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock? I should like to chat this matter over with you a little further.
Why, certainly. What will you do now?
I have some errands to run that I think will be of some use. Until tomorrow, Watson.
At 3 o'clock precisely, I was at Baker Street. But Holmes had not yet returned. Mrs. Hudson informed me that he had left the house shortly after 8 o'clock in the morning. I sat down beside the fire, with the intention of waiting for him, however long he might be. It was close upon 4 before the door opened, and a drunken-looking groom, ill-kempt and side-whiskered, with an inflamed face and disreputable clothes, walked into the room. "My dear sir, who let you in? You're in a private residence, and I warn you." "I do not see what's so funny."
My dear Watson.
"Holmes?"
My apologies, Watson. I couldn't resist to see if I could fool even you with this disguise. Give me just a minute or two, and I'll be back to my good self.
With a nod, he vanished into the bedroom, whence he emerged in 5 minutes, tweed-suited and respectable. Putting his hands into his pockets, he stretched out his legs in front of the fire.
I am sure you could never guess how I employed my morning. or what I ended by doing.
Far from it. From your earlier appearance, I would imagine that you have been watching the habits, and perhaps the house, of Miss Irene Adler.
Quite so. But the sequel was rather unusual. I left the house this morning a little after 8 o'clock in the character of a groom out of work. There is a wonderful sympathy and freemasonry amongst men who work with horses, Watson. Be one of them, and you will quickly learn all there is to know about their masters and mistresses. I soon found Bryony Lodge, a bijou villa with a garden at the back, but built out in front right up to the road. It has long windows almost to the floor with those preposterous fasteners that a child can open. Can you picture it?
I can, Holmes.
I then lounged down the street and found, as I expected, that there was a mews in a lane which runs down by one wall of the garden. I lent the ostlers a hand in rubbing down their horses and received in exchange twopence, a glass of half and half, 2 fills of shag tobacco, and as much information as I could desire about Miss Adler.
And what of her?
Oh, she has turned all the men's heads. The daintiest thing under a bonnet on this planet, they say, to a man. She lives quietly, sings at concerts, drives out at 5 every day and returns at 7 sharp for dinner, seldom goes out at other times, except when she sings, has only one male visitor, but a good deal of him.
Oh?
He is dark and handsome and dashing and never calls less than once a day, often twice. He is Mr. Godfrey Norton of the Inner Temple. You see, what's some of the advantages of a cabman as a confidant? They had driven him home a dozen times from Serpentine Mews and knew all about it. When I listened to all they had to tell, I began to walk up and down near the Bryony Lodge once more, and to think over my plan of campaign. This Godfrey Norton was evidently an important factor in the matter.
Clearly.
I was still balancing the matter in my mind when a hansom cab drove up to Bryony Lodge, and a gentleman sprang out. He was a remarkably handsome man, dark, and evidently the man of whom I had just heard. He appeared to be in a great hurry, shouting to the cabman to wait and brushing past the maid who opened the door with an air of a man who was thoroughly at home. Presently he emerged, looking even more flurried than before. As he stepped up to the cab, he pulled a gold watch from his pocket and looked at it earnestly. "Drive like the devil," he shouted. "To the Church of St. Monica in the Edgware Road. Half a guinea if you do it in 20 minutes. And away they went. And I was just wondering whether I should not do well to follow him, when up the lane came a neat little landau, the coachman with his coat only half buttoned, and his tie under his ear.
You don't say, Holmes.
It hadn't pulled up before Miss Adler herself shot out of the door of the lodge and into it. I only caught a glimpse of her at that moment, but she was indeed a most attractive woman. "The Church of St. Monica, John," she cried, "and half a sovereign if you reach it in 20 minutes. Now this was quite too good to lose, Watson. But lose it I might have done had I not a cab entered the avenue at just that moment. The driver looked twice at such a shabby affair.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
But I jumped in before he could object. "The Church of St. Monica," said I, "and half a sovereign if you reach it in 20 minutes. Now, I can assure you that the driver more than earned his reward. The others were still there before us. Moving swiftly, but quietly, I entered the church. There was not a soul there save the 2 whom I had followed, and a clergyman who seemed to be arguing with them by the altar. Needing to find out more, I affected to walk slowly up a side aisle, feigning disinterest in their business. Suddenly, to my surprise, they turned around, and Norton ran towards me.
Thank God! You'll do! Come!
"Here, what do you want with me, Gov?"
Come on, man! We have only 3 minutes, or it won't be legal. We'll make it worth your while."
"If you say so, Gov." I was half dragged up to the altar, and before I knew where I was, I found myself mumbling responses which were whispered in my ear and vouching for things of which I knew nothing, and generally assisting in the secure tying up of one Irene Adler, spinster, to one Godfrey Norton, bachelor.
I don't quite believe it, Holmes.
It was all done in an instant, and there we were. The gentleman thanking me on the one side, the lady on the other, while the clergyman beamed on me in front. It was, without doubt, The most preposterous position in which I have ever found myself in my life. It seems there had been some irregularity with their licence, and that the clergyman absolutely refused to marry them without a witness of some sort. My lucky appearance saved the bridegroom from having to sally out into the streets in search of a best man.
Well, that takes some beating. You, a best man?
Miss Adler herself promised me a gold sovereign for my troubles, though in the heat of the moment she must have forgotten to do so. A pity. I'd have worn it on my watch chain as a memento of the occasion.
I don't doubt that you might. But this is a most unexpected turn of affairs. What happened then?
Well, I thought my plans very seriously endangered. It looked as if the pair might make an immediate departure, and so necessitate some very prompt and energetic measures on my part. At the church door, however, they separated.
They what?
They separated. He driving back to the temple, and she to her own house. I shall drive out in the park at 5 as usual, she said as she left. Then they drove away in different directions, and I returned here to make my own arrangements.
Which are?
Some good cold beef and a glass of beer. I have been too busy to think of food, and I am likely to be busier still this evening. By the way, Doctor, I shall want your cooperation.
I shall be delighted.
You don't mind breaking the law?
Not if the cause is good.
Oh, the course is excellent.
Then I am your man.
Capital! I was sure I might rely on you.
But what do you need of me?
In 2 hours we must be on the scene of action. Miss Irene, or Madame, as she is now, returns from her drive at 7. We must be at Brinley Lodge to meet her.
And what then?
Leave that to me. I have already made arrangements for her reception. There is only one point on which I must insist. I must have your word, Watson, that you are not to interfere no matter what occurs.
I am to remain neutral?
You must do nothing whatsoever. There will probably be some small unpleasantness, but do not become involved. It will end in my being conveyed into the house. 4 or 5 minutes afterwards, the sitting room window will open. You are to station yourself close to that open window.
Yes.
Then watch for my signal. When I raise my hand, so, you will throw this into the room and raise the cry of fire. You quite follow me?
Entirely. But what is it?
Don't be concerned. It is simply a plumber's smoke rocket fitted with a cap at either end to make it self-lighting. Your task is confined to that. When you raise your cry of fire, it will be taken up by quite a number of people. You will then walk briskly to the end of the street, and I will join you after some 10 minutes. I hope that I have made myself clear.
You may rely on me, Holmes.
Excellent. I think perhaps it is almost time for that beef and beer, and after that I must prepare for the new role I have to play. I think perhaps a broad black hat, a sympathetic smile, a general look of benevolent curiosity, coupled with a slight nasal quality to the voice, and voila! The Reverend Archibald Tattersham at your service, good sir.
Brilliant, Holmes. Oh, the stage lost a fine actor when you dedicated yourself to the study of crime.
I might have to agree with you there, Watson. Well, it's time for supper, I think.
There were still 10 minutes before 7 when we stepped down from our cab on Serpentine Avenue. Holmes, now quite the image of an ageing clergyman. It was already dusk, and the lamps were just being lit as we paced up and down in front of Brinley Lodge, waiting for the coming of its occupant. For a small street in a quiet neighbourhood, it was unexpectedly animated. There was a group of shabbily dressed men smoking and laughing in a corner. A scissors grinder with his wheel, 2 guardsmen who were flirting with a nurse girl, and several well-dressed young men who were lounging up and down with cigars in their mouths.
You see, Watson, this marriage rather changes matters. The photograph has become quite the double-edged sword now. The chances are that Miss Adler would be as adverse to its being seen by Mr. Godfrey Norton as our client is to its coming to the sight of his princess. Now the question is, where are we to find the photograph?
Well, it is most unlikely that she carries it about with her, It is cabinet size, the king said. Too large for easy concealment about a woman's dress.
She also is evidently aware that the king is capable of having her waylaid and searched. 2 attempts of that sort having already been made.
Where then?
Certainly not into someone else's hand. She can trust her own guardianship, but cannot tell what indirect or political influence might be brought to bear upon others. Besides, remember that she had resolved to use it within a few days. Therefore, it must be where she can lay her hands upon it quickly. It must be in her own house.
Yeah, but it has twice been burgled.
They did not know where to look.
Ah! How do you propose to observe, then?
I don't. She will show me.
And why would she do that?
She won't be able to stop herself. Now, I think this is her carriage. Yes, it is. Now, Watson, you must carry out my orders to the letter.
You can count on me, Holmes. But with all those roughs and loungers by her front door, I doubt she'll be able to get into the house. Look, they're arguing amongst themselves. Holmes, it's turning ugly. Oh, there's going to be a fight.
Oh no, the poor lady. She'll be trampled. Someone must protect her.
Holmes's aged clergyman dashed into the crowd to protect the lady. But, just as he reached her, one of the roughs had swung a fist intended for another target, but hit Holmes clear on the nose. He gave a cry and dropped to the ground, with the blood running freely down his face. At his fall, the guardsmen quickly took to their heels in one direction, and the loungers ran in the other.
Is the poor gentleman much hurt?
Is he dead?
No, they're still laughing him. Oh, but he'll be gone before you can get into hospital.
He's a brave fellow. They'd have had the lady's purse and watch if it hadn't been for him. They were a gang, and a rough one too. Oh, he's breathing now.
He can't lie in the street. May we bring him in, Mum?
Certainly. Bring him into the sitting room. There is a comfortable sofa there. This way, please.
I observed, as Holmes was taken into the lodge, and then swiftly made my way to the sitting room window, taking great care not to be seen. Peering in, I could see Holmes as he lay upon the couch, and suddenly he sat up and made urgent motions like a man who is in dire need of air. A maid rushed across and threw open the window, and at the same instant I saw Holmes raise his hand. I tossed the rocket into the room.
Fire! Fire!
Within mere moments, thick clouds of smoke curled through the room and out at the open window. I caught a glimpse of rushing figures, and a moment later the voice of Holmes from within, assuring them that it was a false alarm. Slipping through the shouting crowd, I made my way to the corner of the avenue, and in 10 minutes rejoiced to find my friend's arm in mine. We walked swiftly and in silence for some few minutes until we turned into Park Road.
You did that very nicely, Doctor. It could not have gone better.
You have the photograph?
I know where it is.
But how did you find out?
She shouldn't. As I told you, she would.
Holmes, you really can be the most infuriating of men. How did you get her to show you?
The matter was perfectly simple. You, of course, saw that everyone in the street was an accomplice.
I guessed that much.
Then, after the row was over, I was taken into the house and the sitting room, which I suspected as being the most likely hiding place of the photograph.
But you were bleeding, Holmes.
Oh, not at all. Some dark red paint mixture in a small vial cupped in the palm of my hand, and a stark white handkerchief to help illustrate the blood did the trick.
Good Lord. And after that?
They laid me on a couch. When, shortly after, I motioned for air, they were compelled to open the window, and you had your chance. And took it well. Good shot, old man.
Indeed. Thank you. But just what purpose did the plumber's rocket serve?
When a woman thinks that her house is on fire, her instinct is at once to rescue the thing that she values the most. Knowing how desperate the king is to avoid a scandal, it was easy for her to imagine that he had been mad enough to start a fire to destroy the photograph. And so she responded as I had anticipated. The photograph is in a recess behind a sliding panel just above the bell pull.
You saw it?
I caught a glimpse of it as she half drew it out. When I cried out it was a false alarm, she replaced it, glanced at the rocket, rushed from the room, and I have not seen her since. I rose, and making my excuses, quickly escaped from the house. I did consider attempting to secure the photograph at once, but the coachman had come in, and as he was watching me somewhat narrowly, It seemed safer to bide our time rather than risk all.
And now?
We shall return to Bryony Lodge with the king tomorrow. Early, perhaps 8. We shall be shown into the sitting room to wait for the lady, but I think it is probable that when she comes she will find neither us nor the photograph. It might give some satisfaction to His Majesty to regain it with his own hands. Ah, here we are. Baker Street. Come, Watson, a fire, a warm pair of slippers, and our pipes await. And I, for one, will be happy to say goodbye to our friend the Reverend and his cursed stiff collar, no matter how useful he was.
Yeah, mind out there, lad.
Good night, Mr. Holmes.
Who was that, Holmes?
I've heard that voice before. Now, I wonder who the deuce that could have been.
You have it,
Not yet.
but you have hopes.
I have hopes.
Then come. I am all impatience to be gone. Driver!
Irene Adler is married.
Married? When?
Yesterday.
But to whom?
An English lawyer named Norton.
Surely she does not love him.
I am in hope that she does.
Why in hope?
Because it would spare your Majesty all fear of future annoyance. If the lady loves her husband, she does not love your Majesty. And if she does not love your Majesty, there is no reason why she should interfere with your Majesty's planned engagement.
That is true, of course. And yet, what a queen she would have made.
Ah, here we are. Bryony Lodge.
There's a maid waiting for someone in the doorway already, Holmes. Should we hold back?
Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I believe.
I am Mr. Holmes.
Indeed. My mistress told me that you were likely to call. She left this morning with her husband by the 5:15 train from Charing Cross, bound for the continent.
What? Do you mean she has left England?
Never to return.
All is lost.
We demand to enter.
My instructions were to allow you to do so. You may go wherever you wish.
What the devil?
Please ring the bell, gentlemen, if you should need further assistance.
Inside, gentlemen. I fear we are too late.
The room, Holmes. A whirlwind seems to have been through here.
They left in a hurry, clearly.
Where would she keep the photograph?
Hiding place was a secret compartment by the bell pull, but I rather suspect it will be empty now.
I am ruined. Ruined!
We'd better look for ourselves just to be certain. Watson, just push that panel, would you?
Is it empty?
Hold on. No. Ah, there's a photograph.
A photograph. Is it the one?
I'm afraid not.
Let me see. I don't understand. This is a photograph of her. Alone.
It seems so.
What does this mean, Holmes?
Ah, there's a letter in here too, Holmes. It's addressed to you.
To me?
What does it say?
Let us see. My dear Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
You really did it very well. You took me in completely. Until after the alarm of fire, I had not even a faint suspicion. Who could doubt such a dear, kind old clergyman? But then, when I realized how I had betrayed myself, I began to think. I had been warned against you months ago. I had been told that if the king employed an agent, it would most certainly be you. Yet, armed with all this, you still made me reveal exactly what you wanted to know. But I have been trained as an actress myself. A gentleman's clothing is nothing new to me, and I often take advantage of the freedom which it gives. I sent John, the coachman, to watch you a while. I ran upstairs, got into my walking out clothes, as I call them, and caught up with you at the corner of Serpentine Avenue. I followed you right to your door just to make sure that I really was an object of interest to the celebrated Mr. Sherlock Holmes. Then I, rather imprudently, wished you a good night and started for the temple to see my husband. We both felt that our best recourse was flight when pursued by so formidable an antagonist, and so you will find the nest empty when you call tomorrow. As to the photograph, your client may rest in peace. I love and am loved by a better man than he. The king may do what he will without further hindrance from me. I keep it only to safeguard myself and to preserve a weapon which will always secure me from any steps which he might take in the future. I leave a photograph which he may wish as a keepsake, and I remain, my dear Mr. Sherlock Holmes, very truly yours.
Irene Adler.
What a woman! What a woman! Did I not tell you how quick she was? How resolute? Is it not a pity, Mr. Holmes, that she was not on my level?
From what I have seen of the lady, she seems indeed to be on a very different level to yourself. I am sorry that we have not been able to bring your Majesty's business to a more successful conclusion.
On the contrary, my dear sir, our venture could not have been more successful. I know that her word is like steel. The photograph is now as safe as if it were in the fire.
I am glad to hear your Majesty say so.
Pray, tell me in what way I can reward you. This emerald ring, perhaps.
Thank you, but no. Your Majesty has, however, something which I should value even more highly.
You have but to name it.
That photograph.
Irene's photograph? Why, certainly, if you wish it.
Thank you, Your Majesty. Then there is no more to be done in the matter. I have the honour to wish you a very good morning.
Holmes, you ignored the king's outstretched hand.
Did I? Yes, I did, didn't I?
Oh, Holmes. Holmes, there was something else in the envelope, wasn't there?
Yes, Watson. Well observed.
Well, what was it?
A gold sovereign.
But that would mean...
Yes. Yes, it would. You know, I think I'll hang her photograph on the wall of the study, Watson.
And that was how a great scandal was avoided, and how the best laid plans of Mr. Sherlock Holmes were beaten by a woman's wit. He used to be quite dismissive when it came to the cleverness of women. No longer. When he speaks of Irene Adler, or when he refers to her photograph, it is always under the honoured title of the woman.
You have been listening to A Scandal in Bohemia by Arthur Conan Doyle, adapted by Paul M. Ford and Daniel Ireson. Dr. John Watson was played by Chris Argles, Richard Lloyd, the King of Bohemia, Rachel Handler was Irene Adler, and Paul M. Ford played the part of Sherlock Holmes. Other parts were played by the company. Music composed, arranged and played by Peter Bird. Editing and sound effects were also by Peter Bird. This has been an Atmospherics production for Theatre Workshop Colston.